Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Berkshire in England in the United Kingdom. Now I know that my American viewers, hello fellow American viewers out there, are pretty confused as to what in the world, why is it called Berkshire when it's clearly spelled Berkshire? And the answer is because that's how it is. I have an even better example for you. Do you see the name of this town here? If you're American, I want you right now to look at this and tell me how you say this name. How do you say this word? Well, in England, you are wrong. This town is called Reading, which I'm sure is also baffling to my Americans because that's clearly reading, but think it's like read, like you read a book. Reading. It's England. Things are pronounced just a little differently than they are in America. It's fine. They're also very well aware that it's silly, but it's England. The entirety of Berkshire is covered in the Berkshire Downs and a bit in the north here as well. The Berkshire Downs are a series of chalk hills, and farther north, it used to be part of Berkshire up here, now it's in Oxfordshire, is a really beautiful horse that's carved into a hillside, because all you have to do to make a picture is just dig until you reach the chalk. Then you have a beautiful chalk drawing in the hills. There are quite a few rivers here, but the two most important ones are the Kennet, River Kennet, which flows up here, meeting into the other important river, which is the Thames, which is another place in England that my fellow Americans would see and call it Thames. It is the Thames River. Nothing is as it seems sometimes. It's the Thames River, which is very famous because that is the river that flows through London. You can see it's just over here. We're not terribly far away from London. Some important places we're going to talk about, of course, there's Reading. There's also Newbery. Wokingham we're not going to really talk about, but it pops up a lot in my research. There's also, of course, Windsor, which is where Windsor Castle is located, and makes this officially a royal county. Pretty special. But let's get into the history here. Of course, being England, it's quite interesting. And if you're newer to my channel, don't expect a complete, detailed, super deep dive into the history here. We're going to do a brief overview. And I'm going to omit a couple things because we're going to look at them on Google Earth. And I'll explain the history of those places there. So there's actually been a very long history of human habitation in Berkshire. In fact, you can see this town here called Thatcham. And it's believed that Thatcham is the oldest continuously inhabited place in Great Britain, which is the entire island here, not the United Kingdom. Great Britain, big difference. We don't have time for that right now. It could also possibly be Avebury, which is right over here, and I could personally say Avebury is lovely, but it could most likely be Thatcher. In the year 871, a group of Danes, which more or less you could say Vikings, camped out right here And the West Saxons were like, well, you need to get out. And they attacked, and they were actually defeated. The Danes went out, which is pretty interesting because the Saxons were led by their king at the time. I think it was Ethelred, and also his brother, who would come to be known as Alfred the Great, who, in my opinion, is like the most important king in what's now England before the current monarchy line hopped on over in 1066. Pretty interesting. They didn't stick around, apparently. They left when winter hit. But that was like the first main settlement in the first Battle of Reading, technically. In 1066, William the Conqueror, like I said, hopped over from Normandy and took over the country, became King William the First. He established what is to become Windsor Castle. He said, here's where this castle is going to be. Over many, many centuries, it has been built up and renovated and changed by various monarchs into the castle that we have today, the castle grounds. But we'll talk more about that during the Google Earth portion. In the year 1121, King Henry I founded Reading Abbey, and I'm pretty sure he's still buried there. There were various important abbeys in the area. Again, pretty much like this whole part of Oxfordshire was part of Berkshire at the time. So Abingdon Abbey was like the most important one, but we're not going to talk about it because it's no longer in our county, unfortunately. I'd like to talk about some of the things up here, but not tonight. That abbey, Reading Abbey, was destroyed in 1538 along with many other monasteries throughout England. That is because Henry VIII had a hissy fit, basically. He had a lot of those. He got big mad and said, just destroy all the monasteries and abbeys that are, linked or more allied with the Catholic Church and the Pope than me. So Reading Abbey did not survive that time, but we'll look at its ruins on Google Earth. I've been to, where was it? Glastonbury, I believe. I think it was Glastonbury. The ruins there because of Henry VIII. There's a whole bunch, but that was one of them. This area historically was known for producing cloth. And there's a very large cloth industry prior to the Industrial Revolution. Just before that would happen, once silk was introduced, or silk making, I should say, there was a silk industry here as well, but I'm jumping ahead. Let's talk about the Civil War. Pretty much, if you don't know anything about the Civil War here in the UK, it was pretty much Charles I said, I am going to be an absolute monarch and I don't care about any other legal anything. I am the ruler. And that did not fly with Parliament. The Civil War broke out. So, oh darn, I didn't write down the year. But Charles I was fleeing. I think he was fleeing from Oxford and he hid out here in Reading. The parliamentary forces knew he was there, and so they sieged the town for 11 days, so he couldn't come and go. But actually, most of the big conflict happened over here in Newbery. There were two very large battles during the Civil War at this time here in Newbery. The second of which destroyed the nearby castle, Donnington Castle, and we'll look at those ruins on Google Earth as well. In 1688, during the Glorious Revolution, which was after the dust settled from the Civil War, and the UK figured out that it is still best to have, king and parliament. Having too much on one side and too much on the other side created too much havoc. King James II at the time was, overstepping that balance, and his daughter, Mary, was married to William of Orange over in the Netherlands. And they were like, this dude is going to destroy everything. We're going to go and take over and be joint rulers, William and Mary. And they sure did. They came and took the throne. It was, for the most part, not an extremely violent revolution, but the only actual conflict, the only actual raw fighting happened here at Reading. It is known as the Second Battle of Reading, even though it wasn't a full-on battle like it was back in, what year was it? 871. But a conflict it was nonetheless, and it was a victory for William of Orange. Then we head into the Industrial Revolution, where Reading, most especially, was known for beer, biscuits, and bulbs, which is very catchy. But the area really expanded by way of the train network. Massive train stations built in this county, which makes sense because Reading, Newbery, Maidenhead were historically like stopover towns when you would ride your carriage from London to wherever you were going, whatever other part of the country you're heading toward. These were towns that you would stop over for the night. So it was always a coming and going place, so it makes sense that there are very large train stations there. It was during this time that those lines began and helped this area prosper. During World War II, there were a few bombings from the Luftwaffe in 1943 in Reading and Newbery, and probably some other places as well, but I didn't see anything about that. It was nothing as bad as like the Blitz over in London, but people did still lose their lives during that. Also, probably about here or so near the Kennet was a very large prisoner of war camp, believed to possibly be the largest in England, known as Camp 1001. There's nothing there. It no longer exists. It became farmland again. But it was a German POW camp throughout World War II. Also interesting, a little legacy of World War II. You can see this town here called Bracknell. It was founded in 1949. Like very, very new in England's history, right? Settlements existed there before then, but it wasn't anything official until then. And it was made to house people who did lose their homes during the bombing of World War II. It's a thriving little community today. And that, in a very brief nutshell, is the history of Berkshire. England has all kinds of neat little facts here and there. It's fun to really sit down because we already did Bedfordshire up here. It's fun to see what I can dig up over here. Some interesting little tidbits, I think at least. But I want to show you a bunch of things on Google Earth. I'm very excited to do so. So we're going to hop over to the tablet. Let's go. Here we are in Berkshire. Never puts the boundaries there for these like historical counties, right? But you get the gist. Let's zoom out so we can see exactly where we are in the world. Let's explain Great Britain versus the United Kingdom. Here is England. Be cool if that boundary came back up. No? No, okay. Here's England. Here's Scotland. There's Wales and Northern Ireland. And all four make up the United Kingdom. But this big island right here is called Great Britain. So if you're saying Great Britain, but you're also referring to Northern Ireland, you're incorrect. Just England, Scotland, Wales is on Great Britain. And of course, we are in Europe. You can see the English Channel right there, separating England from France. And Norway's just up there, Iceland's just up there, Ireland's right there, so on and so forth. There's the Netherlands, where William of Orange was king, I believe, right? He was the king there and became king over here. Or maybe he was, I don't know. He was in line for the throne here in England, and he took it. So let's start here in Reading. There's some cool museums here. I guess we'll look at that first. The Reading Museum in this beautiful brick building. Some cool Bayeux tapestry style art here from medieval times. A little diagram of what life was like here. Some creatures. There's Elizabeth I. Very easy to determine with her dress and bright red hair. Another tapestry, probably the same we just saw. The Bayeux tapestry is very much like this, but it depicts the Battle of Hastings. Lots of artifacts here. And photographs. All doodads. Neat little museum. Ooh, that's fun. Ancient pottery. Old books and things. And some hieroglyphs. Why not? Why not have some hieroglyphs? There's another museum here called the Museum of English Rural Life, which that's very niche, isn't it? Some old clothes and items that people used every day back when like old-timey farming lifestyle was the thing. You can see carriages and carts there, very old cars, a wicker man. Is that a real wicker man? Surely it's some kind of costume. Have you guys seen the movie, the real movie, not the Nicolas Cage one? It's one of my favorite movies. There's a cow here wearing a giant sweater, or a jumper as they'd say. Old-timey bicycle, some sweet cows. They're cute. Yeah, that's a neat little museum. Wow, look. Old deconstructed cart there, but it looks a bit an old tractor. Cool mural there. And old farm tools. So, if we head down here, we can see the Abbey ruins now. Put in 3D. The gate to these ruins. This is the Blade. Very imposing building. The gate to the Abbey's over here. So this all used to be Abbey grounds. Now it's big skyscrapers. I feel like this was an attempt to be like the Shard over in London. Or I guess like the Gherkin. The blank, you know. But here is the Abbey today. 3D. Reading Abbey ruins. Let's see what's left. Very remarkably, look at very remarkably preserved, right, for a ruin. I would hope so, since it's like right downtown. But King Henry Beauclerc founded Reading Abbey June 18th, 1121. Near to this spot was buried. I wonder if he's still there. I guess so. But yeah, I'm not sure what I'm trying to say. There's some modern art there too, I suppose. Good place to put it. But you would think old ruined buildings would just fall apart, but I guess that shows you how well made they were to begin with, that all the stone is still standing. Here's, I guess, what it would have looked like back then. You can see the Thames River over here. The big train stations over here. Look at all the rail lines. The tube stations right there. And that is Reading. Guess we'll hit Newbery next. Newbery. I'm trying to remember if there's anything I wanted to show you in town. apologies if you're from Newbery watching this and I'm like, LOL, there's nothing really to look at. But it's mostly because what I really want to show you is Donington Castle right here. You can see those ruins right here. Castle built in, what did it say, 1386. And that's all that's left of this building, destroyed during the Civil War. What was it, 16? I don't want to guess. I'm so bad with years. I guess you could just run around this ruin. A little moat there, where there was one. All overgrown now, horses grazing nearby. You could bring your dog. Wow, look at this drone shot. There's the castle. You can really see, all that's really left. The perimeter there upon the hill. It's very haunting. Old castle ruins there. Ooh, the pretty forest. Let's see. I also want to show you. Let me remember. I suppose I should show you the bits that I went to. Over here's Wokingham, Bracknell I mentioned. I forget what I was going to show you. Okay. Just all the other towns. There's Maidenhead. Slough, I didn't mention. Slough, the first thing I think of is The Office, because in the UK, that's where The Office is located, because Ricky Gervais is from Reading. That's his show. But I suppose what I really want to show you is Windsor and Eton. I'll show you Eton as well. Eton's over here, home to Eton College, which is like the top boys' school in England, probably the entire UK. And I may or may not have strolled along here when I was 18, hoping to find a husband. I may not confirming or denying that. But if I did, listen, I was 18. I was in the UK, hoping to find Prince Harry. Little did I know at the time that he was in Central Africa when I visited. I was very bummed. But when I left, I was like, oh, Prince Harry isn't going to marry some girl from California. Surely not. Let me show you a little museum here showing the school life. A little dorm here. They play the clarinet. And some photos of some men who attended Eton. Some infamous. Some just regular famous. Little dorm room there with the laptop. I guess that's old-timey life and new-timey life. Some straw hats, little boaters there. There he is. Listen, I've had a crush on this man since I was 5 years old. Oops. He's only a year older than me, so it's fine. But listen. We're moving on. I'm not going to talk about it. Yeah, some famous faces that attended Eton. Famous for good things or maybe some not so good things. In politics mostly, but I'm not naming names. And just a hop, skip, and a jump away is Windsor. And here you can see Windsor Castles, but in 3D. Here's Windsor Castle, which I also stomped around at one point. Just to look, because, Windsor Castle has kind of a thing about it. Oh, that's right. And when I was there, it was 2003. I want to say 2003. The flag was flying, saying that the Queen was present in Windsor Castle. I was like, oh my gosh, she's right here. That's so cool. But here's Windsor Castle, very famous for its circular tower here. I remember when there was a fire here in 1992, and I was, like 7, and very worried that my boyfriend Prince Harry was somehow in the fire. Listen, I've followed the British royal family very carefully since I was a little girl. It's been my hyperfixation since I was in kindergarten. Mainly because of Diana. I was obsessed with Princess Diana and her youngest son. But speaking of the royal family, over here is an interesting little part of the park area, and it is Frogmore over here. So, Queen Victoria, right? She saw Buckingham Palace, Windsor Palace. Those were her offices. That's where she worked. Where she lived was either up in Scotland, which we actually already looked at on my channel, and here at Frogmore. This was the house where she, Albert, and all the kids lived. Their little country home. Let's look at some pictures. There we go. Here's Frogmore. Just a little house, nothing too flashy, nothing. We'll look at those in a minute. Just a little quaint, that's Frogmore Cottage. Just, a quaint little house, nothing too opulent, nothing too fancy. Over there's Frogmore Cottage, where they would play pretend that they were poor. They built some fake ruins in here to play pretend that they're in the authentic countryside. Over here is where her mother lies, and over here is where Victoria and Albert lie. Of course, before Albert, he died much younger than Victoria did, and she was so heartbroken for the rest of her life, so he was kept there. There's also his farm over here, where they could play pretend to be farmers. Just, a quaint little house, nothing too, their own man-made lake, nothing too fancy. Nothing too out of the ordinary, right? Everyone has a little play pretend farm and cottage, right? I'm kidding, obviously. But yeah, I think... Oh, Legoland is here. I guess we can look at Legoland too. My nephews just got back from Legoland San Diego and they loved it because they're both under 10. It's like the perfect age for Legoland. All these cool little recreations of world monuments made out of Lego. Legoland's always fun, if you're under 10. But yeah, let's see, I mentioned Ricky Gervais is from Reading. Speaking of the royal family, that's where Princess Catherine's from, the future queen. Hopefully sooner than later. I didn't say that. You didn't hear me say that at all. I didn't say anything like that. One of my favorites, Daniel Howells from Wokingham, from Dan and Phil. I'm a massive Dan and Phil fan, which says a lot about me. Over in Newbery, his name escapes me, but he invented Paddington. Paddington Bear is one of my favorite. I love Paddington Bear. I should have grabbed him. I could show you, but it's dark anyway. I have a little Paddington, but my video on Peru, I brought Paddington out because he's from darkest Peru. I love Paddington. He had lots of wonderful famous faces from Berkshire. And I think that's all that I have for you tonight. I guess here, I didn't show you over in Windsor. Oh, you know what we didn't look at? Oh, we have to look at Ascot. The Ascot opening race. I'm an Audrey Hepburn nerd. We gotta look. I love My Fair Lady. Wait, there it is. My Fair Lady has the worst ending of almost any movie I've seen, but she's so beautiful, and the Ascot scene is the best scene in the whole movie. The best. But this is the famous Ascot race course. Probably one of the most famous race courses in the world. There's some air shows there. Welcome to Ascot. Yeah, I guess they do air shows when there aren't horse races. All kinds of air shows. Yeah, there's Audrey right there. The Ascot opening day. Anyway, I think that's all that I have for you tonight. I'm gonna look around, make sure I didn't forget anything that I wanted to show you, but As you can see, there's all kinds of different slideshows all over the place for you to check out. Let's look at this to close. Natures. I haven't looked at this. Natures. Keep Hatch Park. That's a good trigger word. Keep Hatch. Keep Hatch. Keep Hatch. Keep Hatch. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this style of content, please consider subscribing. And actually, no, you have to subscribe now because tomorrow we are going to Berlin. Oh, I'm so excited. I love Germany. Berlin is wonderful, and I know a lot of you watching are from Berlin. So I know you're all excited. I'm excited too. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. If you learned a cool new fact, or maybe you're from this part of England, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments any cool facts you learned, or your favorite parts, or whatever it is you want to comment. I'm replying to every single comment this year. So I'd love to hear what you have to think. This dog is so adorable. I love the little dog. I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational. And I hope that you have a good